I've got a few quick questions for you today. And the first one is, what does culture mean to you? And why do you think it matters to brands?
So I love this question because I like to look at the linguistic history of the word culture to help brands really understand what their role is in it. And the etymology behind culture comes from the Latin word that means to till, or to care for, or to tend to something. And it sounds like a little bit fluffy and almost woo-woo to say culture is caring about something, but that's exactly what it is, right? It's what you value in your social systems. It's the things that are of importance to communities or a community. And when I talk about defining culture, I'm really talking about, in the context of brands, I'm talking about how brands can tend to the things that are important to communities right now. And that doesn't have to be altruistic. It doesn't have to be impact or social impact driven. It can just be leaning into the fact that there is a lack of joy or happiness right now in society. It's why someone like Liquid Death is so good at marketing, because they're tapping into tending to that lack of joy or happiness, and they make chaotic and ridiculous ads. So this idea of culture is about tending to things that are important to people or maybe missing in society right now.
What is the biggest mistake brands make when trying to be culturally relevant or trying to come up with their own cultural strategy?
I think very few brands understand their role in culture. So many of them chase these fleeting trends, and a trend does not equal culture. A trend might indicate a larger social shift. For example, the trend of Brat Summer wasn't just like this moment of Charlie XCX had a really popular album and aesthetic that people were trending towards. It was about this kind of nonchalant ideal that so many women have, and seeing how social systems are failing them and just wanting to have fun and party because life is so serious and hard right now. So I think brands understanding beyond like these fleeting trends that they're seeing on social media, what is the bigger ripple that is happening because of a series of trends or a series of conversations that are happening, and what, if any, is their role in that? I think so many brands just chase these fleeting trends, which can be expensive, can be time consuming. And there's nothing wrong with leaning into a social media trend, but having a firm grasp of where your brand sits, which very few brands do, is how you make that strategy of playing in culture sustainable and additive to communities who are part of these trends or part of these social shifts.
What questions should they ask themselves to figure out how to engage with culture in a way that's additive both to them and to their audiences?
First, I think you need to understand what you do and you don't stand for. And I don't use that language in the sense of social impact, although it can certainly lean into social impact. But for a brand who markets to women, do you stand for joy and humor and unseriousness? Or do you stand for something that is more practical and functional? Or do you stand for something that is more purposeful? It doesn't need to be a all or nothing. It can certainly be a mix or a plurality, because, for example, women and girls are pluralities, right? But having a very firm sense of your brand personality, your tone and your approach. I also think being willing to be flexible and not just approaching every communication channel through the same brand tone or brand lens that we might have 15 years ago, right? If a brand says we are, an expert and we talk with authority, that's not going to translate on a place like TikTok, or if you're doing something that's a little bit in a place that tends to be more chaotic, for example. So being willing to be flexible, but having a very firm grasp on what you do and what you don't stand for, so you don't try and chase every single conversation that could potentially be relevant to your brand.
And what role do you see creators and the creator economy play in this culture and brands world? And how can brands work with creators to connect with culture?
I love that question. And in addition to being a culture strategist, I'm also a creator. And I talk about a lot of things, but one thing I talk about is culture with my community. I think creators today are at the center of the cultural universe for brand marketing. It's no longer, right, these like institutions at the center who are saying this is what culture is. Instead, it's a million creators saying this is what I think is interesting. And instead of it being this singular universal ideal coming from one big institution, it's a million voices driving and shaping the social values that we see today. And I see a lot of power in that. I obviously also see a lot of negative that obviously we are seeing in the political space behind that as well. But if brands want to play in culture, they have to have a very firm grasp on creator marketing in a way that is beyond just, here's $1,000, go make me a video. It needs to be co-created. It needs to be co-developed. It needs to be in a tone or a way that makes sense for the creator, right? Before we could just throw ads on any website and that was it. Now creators are their own media channels, and being able to meet the tone and the voice of creator platforms is the only way that brands are going to be successful.
So how do you help brands and creators actually speak the same language so that they can co-create?
Yeah, I like to act as this kind of spoke in the middle of the wheel, where I speak the language as a creator and I speak the language as a brand marketer and a strategist who's been in the industry for almost 12 years. I think marketers oftentimes walk into their jobs and like put on this weird hat where they're like, I'm no longer a person and I am now a marketer. And what I love to do is to help marketers just like sometimes take off that hat and remember, what are the things that you're obsessed with? What are the things that you think are culturally interesting? How do you speak in your day-to-day life? What's important to you? And help them remember the social values and the cultural values that are important to them and their communities can also be relevant to the work that they are doing.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.